gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep dancing down in West Hollywood.
I wanted you to see these player evaluations that you asked me to do.
I asked you to do 3.
Yeah,
To evaluate 3 players.
yeah.
How many did you do?
47.
Okay.
Actually, 51. I don't know why I lied just then.
Welcome back into the Door Report. Welcome back into episode 302 of the Door Report on a lovely Monday evening, February 10th, 2025. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, a.k.a. Hack Squat Jim Duggan. Here at the Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. Shipping is always fast and free. You can find 615 Collectibles by going directly to their store at www.ebay.com/str/615collectibles, or you can just go to ebay.com and type 615 Collectibles in the search bar. Trevor, we're back. We just finished up segment 2 of the episode, so we're a little out of order again. But we just finished up segment 2, previewing the 2025 Vanderbilt baseball season with TDR writer Alex Kurbegov. And I've got to say, we told him we were going to hype him up. I don't know if he believed us too much. I think he thought we were just blowing smoke. That was the best, or I'll say one of the best, because we've had a lot of great guests. That was one of the best guests we've ever had. Alex is a writer for us. I don't even want to call him a guest, but Alex,
a member of TDR.
Yeah, Alex didn't know he was taking a test, but Alex was taking a test. And Alex passed it with flying colors. So we now have our recurring guest during baseball season, Alex Kurbegov. Anybody listening to this right now, by the time you finish up listening to segment 2, you will 100% agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
An incredible breakdown of the 2025 roster and an incredible breakdown of where the strengths and weaknesses lie on the roster.
I'll say this too, for somebody who has never, I think that was his first ever podcast appearance. We've had a lot of guests that have done previous like media interactions. For that being his first, that was, and I'm not saying this, he's the homie, that was the most impressive first pod appearance that I've ever been a part of on TDR.
Yeah, and it gives me a lot of faith. I already had faith in Alex. I edit his articles, and I don't have to do much editing. So I post them, I read what he writes, and it's incredible. But Alex will be the first TDR writer that will have credentials for a Vanderbilt season, and Alex will be credentialed and covering Vanderbilt baseball this season. And that interview just let us know that we made the right decision with Alex. So Alex is going to do an incredible job. That will be in segment 2. And we were going to talk a little baseball, just us, prior to segment 2. I'm wiping that off the board. We don't need to talk any baseball.
He nailed it.
He hit the nail on the head, and we talked all the baseball that you're going to want to hear in segment 2 and everything you need to know going into the season that starts in how many days? This weekend? Am I right?
College baseball starts this weekend.
Yeah, the college baseball starts this weekend. So baseball is right around the corner, but we have a little bit of basketball to talk about in segment 1. Vanderbilt has had 2 games, one a good outcome, one not a good outcome, one against Florida on the road, one against Texas at home. So me and Trevor are going to cover those 2 games and discuss where Vanderbilt sits in the national rankings. But in the intro, Trevor, yesterday was the final game of football season. Sad, sad day, not because of the outcome of the game, but a sad, sad day because there are now 7 months until football begins again. But Trevor, as an Eagles fan, is rocking Eagles gear. Trevor, how are you feeling?
E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles, go Birds! Dynasty killers, that's how I'm feeling right now. Shout out to 2 Vanderbilt legends, Kari Blasingame and Oren Burks, for both winning their first ever Lombardi trophy. If you weren't cheering for the Birds yesterday, you're a bad Vandy fan. But I I will say this, man. What a past couple of months of sports has been for me personally. I just can't be stopped. I'm becoming too powerful. God forbid the Reds make the postseason. God forbid the Reds make the postseason.
Trevor is ascending.
I
will say, as Trevor's roommate, Trevor is an incredible person to have on your side when he is a fan of your team as well. I will say, if he's on the other side, he's not on the other side of me. I don't have an opinion on the Eagles, but boy, is he tough to deal with on the other side of things. So, Trevor, I'm happy we're fighting from the same side.
Yes, dude. Oh, God. Could you imagine if, like, I was a fan of another SEC program? I would be public enemy number one for Vanderbilt fans.
Thank God you are not. But we have a locked and loaded episode 302 to get to. But before we get into all that, we are now a part of the Rivals Publisher Network. So visit vanderbilt.rivals.com today and subscribe to a monthly or annual subscription and support TDR. You can use code DOORREPORT, all capital letters, no spaces, for a 30-day, no-risk free trial. I repeat, please, guys, we do not want to put things behind a paywall. We don't. But we need people to subscribe or we have to start putting things behind a paywall. Because openly people are canceling and saying nothing's behind a paywall. But people hate paywalls.
Yeah.
But there's a reason.
It's a catch-22. It's a catch-22.
We don't want to. We want everybody. We want Vanderbilt sports to have as much visibility as possible. And we want people that want to gather as much information about Vanderbilt to have access to that information. But also we want to provide higher quality Vanderbilt coverage. So we're in between a rock and a hard place.
We're being shamed for providing for the masses.
Whatever. But subscribe. There's a code, Door Report.
It's
all
free.
Capital letters, no spaces. It's free. Sign up and renew. All right. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
But smoking is clearly bad.
You know what? Stress is bad for your health. So if you smoke a couple cigarettes, then in a way, and it takes that stress away, then in a way, it's healthy.
Welcome back into segment 1 of episode 302 of The Door Report. We are going to start off segment 1 like we are going to start off every episode. I emphasized right before the lead-in, please subscribe at vanderbilt.rivals.com and support The Door Report. But we're starting off with premium message board subscriber questions and comments. I once again forgot to put out this Q&A until this morning, so we have less responses than we did last episode. That is 100% on me. But we covered a couple of these questions with Alex in segment 2, but we'll cover the rest of them right now. Number 1. Somebody asked, just how valuable is Jalen Carey to this team when he plays like he did against Texas? Unbelievable.
Hot take, and this in hot take, he might be the most valuable player on the team.
He is.
People are going to say Jason Edwards. He might be the most valuable player on the team when he plays like that.
Jason Edwards, it's a situation where the expectation is Jason Edwards is going to score between 15 to 20. So value that you just need to have, you have to have Jason Edwards. But on this team, Jalen Carey is the deciding factor if this team can win games or not.
Yep.
He fully came into that Texas game. Before he came in, Vanderbilt was being dominated down low. They were being dominated in the paint. Jalen Carey came in and played 6 inches taller than 6'8", came in and took over that game. So when he takes over games, I think there was a stat that was like when he scores 10 plus in SEC play, Vanderbilt's undefeated or something close. And when he scores less than 10, they have 1 win or something like that. So Jalen Carey is, I used the phrase that Jason Edwards is the straw that stirs the drink in an article I wrote. And I think that is true. But Jalen Carey is the secondary straw. He's the actual hand turning it.
He might be the main ingredient.
And I think that is just because it's, I don't want to shit on him. It's more because Vanderbilt's options at the post are just so limited. So when he comes in and plays like that, it's like, holy hell, this team is complete. Finally, they cannot pay as much attention to the post as they would like to because Vanderbilt has weapons on the outside. Yeah. It's just finally they have a guy that is, he's not consistent. If he can become consistent, this Vanderbilt team can go very far.
Well, and could you imagine if Vanderbilt had a true 5 and you could put him at the 4? Dude, Lord have mercy. But just the resurgence that Jalen Carey has had so far from the start of this season to now, I mean, he is a critical part of this team and has won Vanderbilt basketball games by putting the team on his back in a lot of situations. And he is a pleasant basketball player to watch.
Same person, but a second part of the question was I saw a Baseball America rank for Brody Johnston as the 14th best third baseman in college baseball. What are reasonable expectations of him? Number one, I'm just going to say he's hurt, so that's going to lower the expectations early in the season. We talked about this with Alex, but Alex thinks very highly of Brody Johnston. He's a freshman. There's going to be some growing pains, especially missing the warm-up part of the season with what is rumored as a hairline fracture of some kind. So I think of all the players that I didn't want to see get hurt and miss the beginning of the year, it's him as a very talented true freshman at third base. So very disappointed to hear the injury news, but I think he's going to be very good, but it's going to take some time to get adjusted to the college game. And unfortunately, he's not going to get the full non-con play that you would hope to see.
Yeah, I will say he will have to get adjusted, and there might be some rust. I will say, though, I think baseball is much different than the other sports to where like a freshman can come in and dominate immediately. So I think it's also because you see, like take Max Clark, for example, 18-year-old kid goes to AA baseball playing with professional athletes and grown-ass men and is knocking the stinking cover off the ball. Some kids just have that, and he could be one of those kids that just he comes in and he looks like he's been there for 3 years.
I guess what more mine was every single time a player is coming off an injury, they typically start a little slow.
Yeah.
And it's like as a freshman, you're already going to be expected to maybe have a little bit of a learning curve or an adjustment. And it's like I just don't want to see that spiral because baseball is such a mental game. And it's like he knows he was going to struggle already. That struggling period might be extended even further because of the injury, and you're not going to have as long of an extension to have the struggle or hit a slump because pretty soon SEC play is going to start once he's coming back from the injury. So I agree 100%. I think sometimes freshmen can come in, and young guys do get drafted all the time, come and dominate, but a young guy coming off an injury is concerning.
I will say, though, it is a blessing that the infield is as log jammed as it is because it sucks, but like you can kind of afford to lose him for a couple weeks as opposed to like RJ Austin, like in center field. Like who the hell are you going to put in center field?
Next up, we already talked about the first part of this question with Alex. It was starting 9 predictions for baseball. Alex gave his answer. The next part of the question was names to watch for potential departures in the spring portal window.
For football?
It says for all sports, but I'm assuming mainly football.
The first one that pops off the top of my head, and this is no inside information, Cam Johnson, tight end for Vandy football. I think he's a potential flight risk because I think he's a really talented tight end. I think he could get serious playing time elsewhere. I'd love to have him back. On the defensive side, though,
I'm guessing this question was primarily inspired by a tweet or two and some updates to some bios by Randon Fontenette.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about that.
Fontenette put out a tweet. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it said something along the lines of, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to do what's best for me, and then simultaneously took out mentions of Vanderbilt in his bio on Instagram and Twitter. That's concerning. Everybody can spin whatever they want, as that's just how he tweets. That's just what he says. I think there's a real chance they lose him. I think someone, and Fontenette does tweet, interestingly, a lot. The tweet was not concerning. The tweet coinciding with taking all mentions of Vanderbilt out of his bio was not done by accident. So I'm not saying, and there's been rumors that maybe him and his team are savvy negotiators, and that may be part of it. But as far as guys that I could see losing that are unexpected, that's a name that I want to put out there. Is maybe it's a tactic to get a better NIL deal, but he transferred from TCU to Vanderbilt. He clearly is not concerned about program status. He's concerned about who's going to pay me and give me the biggest stage. And there are teams that can pay him more and give him a bigger stage than Vanderbilt. So I'm not saying I think he's going to leave. I don't think anyone right now sticks out as 100% is going to leave, but I think Cam Johnson is one that I think fits. And then I think there's absolutely no reason outside of being a Vanderbilt fan to completely dismiss what we have seen activity-wise out of Fontenette. I
That's
don't
fair.
want to believe it's true. I don't even if I had to put money on it, I think he's back. But I don't think the odds are crazy in favor. I think he's maybe like minus 210 to be back, or minus 180 to be back, and plus 180 to leave. So that's my view on Fontenette, and it's all based on social media. This is no insight whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll say another sleeper. This is probably the last one. I could probably see Trudell Berry dipping, just with the additions they've made in the secondary and the guys they have coming back from injury. I could see him leaving, but with Tyson Russell leaving, that he has an opportunity to step up. So, but no,
I'm not super
one way
concerned.
or no one way or the other. But I'm like I could see, I guess.
Yeah, that we're kind of grasping at straws
Yeah,
here.
we have not been told anything.
Yeah. There's no, I don't think there's any major concerns of any from us. There just always can be.
Yeah.
You never know. So we're trying to pick some names that you might see. So there are 3 names that you
We're
might
just
see some
throwing stuff at a
activity.
wall.
Next up is a question we can give 100% direct answers on. Rank in order of vibes. SEC series sweep at the Hawk, SEC win at Memorial, SEC win at First Bank. This is so easy.
SEC win at the Bank, SEC win at Memorial, SEC sweep at the Hawk.
Not even close. All right,
not
we can
even
move on
close.
from that one, and that's not even competitive. I think the gaps between those are fucking massive for me. I think SEC win at the Bank is like so 20 tiers above, and then SEC win at Memorial. Also, I love them.
Yeah.
But it's like I've seen a lot of those,
Yeah.
and they're
In
great.
a lot of cases, it's expected.
I've seen a lot of them, and then I've seen a lot of sweeps at the Hawk. So I'm easily going SEC win at the Bank, and also football is king. You can hate it or love it. It is what it is. Yeah. Next up, we have, you'll like this question. Is Oren Burks postseason one of the best recent examples of a Vandy player in the NFL making the most of a playing time opportunity?
Yes.
Yes.
What Oren Burks has done with Nakobe Dean going down for the Philadelphia Eagles, he has been nothing but a step up and make play after play after play for the Eagles in the offseason. He's been sensational.
And this doesn't count because he technically did not graduate from Vanderbilt and is considered a Kentucky player. I think another player is Ray Davis, has really capitalized on the opportunities he has been given with the Bills.
Well,
he has gone from a guy that I did not think had any chance to being a true rotational running back that scored, I believe, in the postseason for the Bills. I could be wrong on that, but was a key contributor on their team.
Yeah.
So he's not recent. Another guy, this is not postseason, but Trent Sherfield has created himself a nice little NFL career that's kind of flown under the radar.
I have a postseason similar to Ray Davis. The Vanderbilt player did not graduate from Vanderbilt, also Philadelphia Eagle, Tyler Steen.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Steen got a lot of snaps last night in the Super Bowl whenever Landon Dickerson went out into the blue tent, or Mekhi Becton went to the blue tent for a long time. He didn't look great, but he was serviceable.
But yeah, we were talking about this, me and my dad were, that just that graphic and just the representation of seeing the Vanderbilt logo and having a Super Bowl champions, and this is like the split thing is, so I genuinely mean this. I had zero rooting interest in the game last night. And of course, after the game is over, if the Eagles win, I'm like, well, hell yeah. Oren Burks and Kari got a ring. That's great. But as far as actual rooting interest influence, it had none on me. Oh, like, I'm very happy and I'm going to capitalize and spread the word and all this, and it's great. But genuinely, like, as far as rooting interest, you can't fake rooting interest.
You weren't like, man, I hope they get it done for Trevor.
No, you can't. It has nothing to do with you as an Eagles fan. There are very few teams. The Eagles fan base is truly despicable. Like, I hate their fan base.
Go Birds!
And it's not from, like, it's even worse. So, like, some fan bases think, oh, everybody hates us because that's against the world. It's like, it's not that. It's not like, and I think even Tennessee has a touch of that. That's like, yeah, if you're a part of it, it's really cool. And like, you can see that perspective, or other SEC. The Eagles genuinely just every week, there's just multiple videos of large portions of their fan base being the worst human beings you've ever seen. And like, there's just no coming back.
Misunderstood.
They're not misunderstood.
Just misunderstood.
I think the main problem is they're too well understood. That cell phones have peeled back the layers, and now we see them for who they truly are. And I think that is the main problem.
You might got us there.
Because we always talk, and there are college fan bases and altercations. We've talked about that, but generally the funniest part is like 90 to 95% of the fights you see on social media at sporting events happen at pro sporting events.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the most shit is definitely talked and the most passion is definitely had about college athletics. But you just don't see those brawls break out as much at college games. And that's very interesting. And that's because pro sports fans are awful. Specifically, not all. The ones that are awful, the fan bases that are awful are so much worse than the bad college fan bases.
Yeah. I will say, though, it's awesome being a part of one of those fan bases.
I'm sure it is.
It's
bud.
awesome.
I'm a Celtics fan, so I understand.
Oh, yeah, dude. Come on. Yeah.
No, the Eagles fans are worse than Celtics fans. That's definitely, yes. Eagles.
We're just passionate, dude.
No,
we just love the Eagles.
No, that's the thing is like no, they're not. That's the thing is they're a different level. They're not passionate. They use the Eagles as an example to be a giant pile of horse shit of a human being, and then just see people in another. Dude, this is such a dumb thing to be talking about right now, but there's no other fan base that consistently has videos of opposing fans getting literally assaulted in their stadium.
Raiders have killed people.
Okay, but here's the difference.
The Raiders have killed people.
Raiders right now, because they're in Vegas, actually don't even have a fan base.
Okay, we'll go Niners. The Niners have killed people.
The Eagles are worse than the Eagles. We can let the fans decide.
Eagles have never killed somebody. Niners have.
The Eagles fan base is the worst fan base in all of professional sports and all of sports in general. That's my opinion, and I think that's shared by a lot of people.
Well, we haven't killed anybody, and the Niners and the Raiders have.
I bet there are some news articles that would disagree with you on not having killed people, but
I'm 90% positive we've never killed somebody.
We will see. Okay, last question we have. What is your stance on bat tampering / shaving in college baseball? A certain team out east is a major culprit. See Christian Moore's opposite field home run on Friday night at Hawkins Field last year.
So what is my opinion on it? I mean, yeah, it happens. Yeah, I think it's, and this is not a new thing. Like bat tampering has been a thing since BB Core was introduced. Like I apologize for burping in the mic. In the early 2010s, like that, there's a reason those Easton bats are banned. Like you can't play with them in it doesn't matter if it's Dixie Youth Baseball. Doesn't matter if it's NCAA SEC Baseball. You cannot play with those Easton bats, those Easton Stealths. And so, like, it's always been stuff like that. Like, it happens in the pros. It happens in wherever there is competition, people will try and skate the rules to get an advantage. No matter the sport, as long as there is a competitive game being fought, people will try and bend the rules to win.
Yeah. I won't even point specifically to any team. Like, obviously, Tennessee is the one Vanderbilt fans want to point to consistently because they're Tennessee.
Yeah.
And they
got caught.
And they got caught at one point and they were hitting bombs. I think it is apparent when you have watched college baseball over the last couple of years, something's going on. It's not specific to Tennessee. It's not just them. If you watch college baseball over the last two to 3 years specifically, the amount of home runs that look like they should be flyouts that end up going out of the ballpark for a lot of teams. This is not just Tennessee. I want to keep saying that because it's not hatred to them. It is a lot of teams. There's something going on. So I don't have the breadth of knowledge of bats, but like you can see it that some teams have this pop off the bat that is not because they made great contact. Their batters look no different, and the ball just flies. Mm-hmm. And they obviously test the bats, do something. There's something that some teams are able to get away with. I just can't put my finger on what it is. And there's a lot of them. So it's a group that are using these certain bats. They just sound different.
So in
the stadium, they sound different.
I think I have an answer to this.
LSU is another one too. They're another good example.
So I think I have an answer to this. So first off, I think it's the baseballs. I do think the baseballs are juiced. And what's different in college baseball as opposed to Major League Baseball is the seams on the baseball are a lot lower. So that's a lot less control for the pitcher. And so the lot less commanded control for the pitcher. A lot more easy. It's a lot easier for the batter to make contact. Additionally, like you said with the bats, last year, teams that were sponsored by Mariucci all led the nation in home runs. LSU, Mariucci team, they use Cat 4s. Second were teams that use Louisville Slugger. Tennessee, Louisville, they were number 2 and number 3 in home runs. They use Louisville Sluggers. So I definitely think like what Mariucci's doing with the Cat 4X, which is their primary baseball, what Louisville Sluggers doing with their BB core stuff, I think does it give people an inherent advantage.
And this is a very so I'm not the base. This is just somebody I played baseball growing up. I watched. I used to be a huge baseball fan. So this is not somebody with like no knowledge of baseball. I've never ever understood this. So enlighten me. I understand in like at the high school level, you can't have standardized bats because they are expensive. And you cannot expect every high school to provide equalized standardized bats. I understand that at high school.
Yeah.
At the college level, that is insane to me. That would be like going and I understand there are differences, but that would be like you have to play with every team is playing with a different football. Like during the game, it's different sizes, like not just a different brand, that they're playing with literally a different, like one is leather and one is a faux leather, one is rubber. Like it's crazy that they don't just have your team has these 3 bats to choose from.
You use a drop 5 bat.
And
everybody uses a drop 5.
Uses the same 3 bats. They're different. They're provided by the NCAA on game day. You get batting practice to warm up with them, and then you use those bats. That would solve the problem. I don't know. And then maybe still LSU and Tennessee and Louisville end up hitting the same amount of home runs. But then there's no even conversation about this. The only reason there's a conversation is baseball is some weird thing where everybody uses their own bats.
Yeah,
it's very, very odd. To me.
Like Vanderbilt has been Demarini as long as I can remember. So Demarini has always been Vanderbilt's bat company. But I think it also goes to Major League Baseball to where you say that it's like, okay, well, they use wood bats. Well, some guys like to swing hickory, some like to swing ash, some like to swing birch.
It's another weird part of baseball that,
and hickory's going to hit a lot heavier than ash.
I keep wanting to draw an equivalent to it, but there's no equivalent because there's no piece of equipment that directly correlates to performance in that way. Like the only comparable thing is like golf, and of course everybody uses different brands.
Yeah,
but like in football, the brand of your cleat or your glove doesn't really matter. In basketball, people have preferences, but the brand of your shoe, it's not like you're kicking the ball into the goal. That's the weird part about baseball is that should be standardized. We're getting off track and we have basketball to talk about, but like I don't understand why that is not just 100% standardized.
Yeah, like everybody uses old hickory Mike Trout.
And I know that baseball players would say, well, I like my bat. And I fully get that. But you shouldn't be able to use it.
So
like that's my whole point is like I know you like it, but isn't that kind of the whole point I'm trying to make?
Yeah.
Is everybody should be using the same standard league issued equipment.
Yeah.
Or NCAA issued equipment. I don't know. It's very weird.
I think the thing at the end of the day is baseball is way more superstitious in my opinion than every other sport. Some guys will swing a Louisville Slugger and it is a fine bat, and then they'll go 0 for 4 and they're like, I need to switch to a Mariucci. And then they go 2 for 3 and they're like, Mariucci's my brand.
Well,
and so I think it's just superstition.
But I'd have no issue with it. Like as far as like if it was a glove, that doesn't matter because that has that's just what you like. But a bat hitting a ball, there are differences in exit velocity that are created by different bats. And it's like that is something that can be directly pointed to that is a place you could cheat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just allowing an open-ended conversation of bat shaving by allowing this to happen versus you could eliminate it right now. If you truly wanted to eliminate any questions and create completely fair play at the MLB and college level, there's steroids. But I say we should put all the players on steroids, number one. But number two, we should regulate the bats. Yeah. But we need to talk basketball because we have Alex in a very long segment too. So we're going to very briefly cover the basketball matchups that Vanderbilt was just a part of. Vanderbilt in their weekday game took on the number 6 Florida Gators in Gainesville in the O-Dome. Really good first half, or pretty good first half out of the doors. Fell apart in the second. fell apart's too strong. Florida got insanely
They got hot.
Yeah, that's why I had the pause
Oklahoma
there.
type hot.
Yeah, Vanderbilt actually led at the end of the first half, 36-35 over the number 6 Gators. But in the second half, Vanderbilt got outscored 51-39. Ended up losing the game 86-75. Florida just got hot. I want to like have some takeaway or something. Basketball is a lot simpler of a game.
Sometimes it is just that simple.
In basketball and baseball, you can put in this side. In football, you can't. Some days the bats are just hot, and there's no explanation.
Yeah.
In the same way, some days the shots are just falling.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation. And in the second half, Florida was unconscious. Specifically, Will Richard was unconscious. Former Belmont player was absolutely unconscious. So Florida had the size advantage. They had the talent advantage. You were on the road. Vanderbilt put up a hell of a fight. But if a team like that gets hot and puts up 51, it really –
it's like, what are you going to do?
I don't want to – it's always – you can never say, and coaches would never like this, quote-unquote, no fault of the defense. Of course, there are ways and situations you can break down on film that you should have been here and you should have helped here and you didn't get a full contest. But truly, there was no difference in the defense in the second half. Florida just hit shots they didn't hit in the first half.
Yeah.
So that's I don't want to say it's a crumple up and throw it away. Florida was the better team, and they were at home, and that's what happened.
And Vanderbilt hasn't been great on the road.
Yeah, exactly. And then the game that is the most important. We talked about it last episode. This was the underline it, star it, exclamation point, must-win game for Vanderbilt. We don't like to say must-wins in basketball too often, but in this SEC, there are must-wins. Vanderbilt was at home playing the unranked. That does not mean not talented or tournament team, but the unranked Texas Longhorns. Vanderbilt came out, did not start out well, did not lead at the half, did not play well the first 6 minutes of the second half, but ended up winning the game 86-78, closed the game out in great fashion. I just want to keep repeating how must-win that was.
That was a big game.
That was the Vanderbilt had slowly slid down with the recent performance. They went from being a 10 or a 9 seed in a lot of bracketologies to being one of the last 4 teams in. And this is when you look at the remaining schedule, which we will talk about in a second. This is when you looked at and said, you just got to win it. And Texas was number 31 in KenPom. Vanderbilt was number 51. Vanderbilt was a 2.5-point favorite according to Vegas. This wasn't like an automatic win. This wasn't an easy game.
Yeah.
Texas is talented, but Vanderbilt went out and did it. And the main factor is around the 14-minute mark. Vanderbilt got down double digits. And I wrote in my recap, they're the teams of the last decade. This team flipped a switch that those teams did not possess.
Yeah.
This team got down double digits. The crowd in Memorial had gotten real quiet. The energy was dissipated. The team looked like they were going to roll over and die. And the absolute opposite happened. They came out. A.J. Hoggard, who was previously scoreless, started putting up buckets. Edwards turned it to another level. Nickel continued to knock down shots. Jalen Carey kept being Jalen Carey. And this team turned it around and got a gritty dub against Texas.
Glock hit a couple of clutch threes.
He only hit one in the first.
Oh, was it just one?
Yeah, but Glock actually struggled from 3. Vanderbilt did not shoot well as a team. Vanderbilt shot 42% as a team overall, 33% from 3. They didn't shoot bad, but they didn't exactly light it up. It just felt like they were lighting it up.
Did Carey hit a 3? Is my brain playing tricks on me? I don't know why, but I thought Glock hit like a couple threes. Just one, huh?
Glock went 1 for 5. Carey did not attempt a 3.
Huh.
Tyler Nickel was hot.
He was hot. He was smoking.
The craziest part about Nickel is, so he ended up only going 4 for 7. So like it felt like he hit more than 4 threes. The reason it felt like that is it's something I've ranted about for 2 years on this podcast, is what Tyler Nickel did shooting the ball in the first half. Texas's defense so focused on him in the second half, and especially the last 14 minutes, that it opened up everything else. And so that is what Vanderbilt has been missing. Tyler Nickel got hot. They knew they had to guard him, and they were giving him so much attention. It opened things up for A.J. Hoggard and Jalen Carey driving to the not Jalen Carey, A.J. Hoggard and Jason Edwards driving to the basket. So a great performance. I actually got to attend in person. I sat down in Section L. Shout out Chef Miller McKee for the tickets.
Were you at all nervous whenever they first started? You're like, okay, I might be a real curse.
Yes.
You're like, I legitimately might be the problem.
Because the only other SEC game I've attended in person this year was their only home loss.
Mississippi State.
This season was Mississippi State. So there was a part of me that was thinking.
Whenever they were up 7-0, you're like, I might have to leave.
Yeah, there was a part of me that really thought that, but the Doors came through, got it done. Jalen Carey was the most valuable point guard of the game, scoring a career-high 18 points and 14 rebounds. Going through a little bit more of the box score, Tyler Nickel had 17 points, like I mentioned, on 4 of 7 shooting from 3, 5 of 9 from the field. Jason Edwards also had 17, 6 of 12 from the field, 2 of 5 from the three-point line. Going down to A.J. Hogard, he had 14 points on 4 of 15 shooting, but all of that was in the second half. He was ice cold, could not throw a ping pong ball into the ocean in the first half, and then it finally clicked.
Yeah.
So those final numbers don't really do what he did justice. Overall, another game. Tyler Tanner seems to have completely taken or flipped roles with Grant Huffman, justifiably so.
Yeah.
Grant Huffman, I was led astray. I knew about the deficiencies in his game offensively. I knew about whatever other deficiencies. I just thought if he was left truly wide open from 3, he doesn't have a quick release, but I thought if left wide open, he could shoot 35 to 40% from 3. Yeah. He was left wide open multiple times during that Texas game and just wouldn't shoot.
Wouldn't shoot it. Yeah.
He just would not shoot. My big issue with Tyler Tanner, while talented, is he is a guard that can't shoot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if Grant Huffman's not going to shoot, Tyler Tanner's a freshman. Yeah. Huffman's a graduate senior. Yeah. Tyler Tanner's a better defender. Yeah. Tyler Tanner's better on handling the ball. On
At least he'll pull the trigger.
And so I have issues with Tanner's game, but all held even. This is where my take on him is misconstrued. If Huffman's going to play like this with no offensive aggressiveness and he's going to turn the ball over how he did, Tanner needs his minutes.
Yeah.
Tanner is a better player than Huffman right now, and it's not even close. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with them.
I mean, dude, there were a couple of times at the top of the key to where there was not a man within 15 feet of him, it felt like, and he's like, I'm not shooting this ball.
So Tanner went 0 for 3 from the field, 0 for 1 from 3, no points, 2 steals. He also, the issue I have with Tanner, I've got to go on this rant. I didn't want to because we have a long episode. The Tanner stuff. So you're not allowed to say anything bad about him because he does incredible stuff. He makes incredible steals that nobody else makes. The other side that I have always had an issue with is he also will make, for every 2 steals he makes 4 to 5 plays that he is completely out of position on defense and will go for a steal or try to get in a passing lane, miss, and then it will cause rotations on the other side, and it makes, for example, Hogard look like he's horribly out of position. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's just 3 rotations over, and his man got left because Tanner tried to steal the ball 80 feet from the basket. Yeah. And so he's going to get – that's why I'm promoting Tanner above Huffman, is not that, like, right now, all held equal. I think Huffman makes less mistakes. Well, last game's not a good example of that. But Tanner is a freshman and will learn. Mm-hmm. And eventually he's not going to make those bad reads. Mm-hmm. He's not going to make 4 bad reads for every 2 good plays. Yeah. He's going to make 4 good plays for every 1 bad read. So that's why I want Tanner more. But all the glowing about Tanner, do not let it get lost that he makes some very bad out of position plays. And he is a complete black hole on offense. Cannot score.
Yeah,
and so
cannot get a bucket.
I love what he does, and he will be a huge piece of this team in the future. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's going to do some great things, and he's going to do some things that are going to make me want to throw a snow globe through my TV. Yeah. There were a couple things he did during that game that drove me up a wall, and then there were a couple plays that he made that made me stand up on my feet and cheer and yell. Yeah. So that's the Tyler Tanner experience for me. Yeah. Most people are just glowing reviews. My review is 75% of what he does is incredible. 25%, I want to pull my hair out of my head. Yeah. So that's where I'm sitting. But what the hell is going on with Huffman was the point of what I was saying.
He looks like he's shell shocked.
It's very weird.
He looks scared.
Ever since that game he was out with the sickness or whatever it was, he's looked like a slightly different player.
He looks scared. He looks scared.
But Vanderbilt right now sitting at 5-5 in the conference, 17-6 in the SEC. A gauntlet ahead of them when it comes to the schedule. Coming up before we record our next episode, they take on number 1 Auburn tomorrow/today when you were listening to this at home. And then they go on the road on Saturday to take on number 4 Tennessee. That's 2 brutal games. But what they have done with the Texas win is all is not lost. Even if they then go on the road to take on Kentucky at Rupp, if they lose those 3 straight, all is not lost.
They've bought themselves some breathing room.
If they had lost the Texas game, they would have to win one of those. Now, of course, you want them to win one. It would boost them up big time. But when you look at the schedule they have left, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, and then you have Ole Miss at home. Got to look at that one as a winnable opportunity. Then you travel on the road at Texas A&M. That's going to be a tough one. And then you have 2 straight home games against Missouri and Arkansas. And then you travel on the road at unranked Georgia. Vanderbilt right now with 5 wins, they just need to find 3 wins in those last games.
Yep.
If they need to find 4, that road gets a lot tougher, but they need to find 3.
Yeah.
And the most optimistic SEC fans, they need to find 2. And so right now, Vanderbilt has set themselves up very well to, at absolute worst, be heavily on the bubble and be able to play themselves in.
Be in the conversation.
And be in the conversation and play themselves in the SEC tournament.
Absolutely.
So Mark Byington, I'm already checking off the box. I've said it every episode. This season is a success. I will say that if they lose 4 straight, I will say that if they lose out, is it going to be disappointing where they are right now? Absolutely. Is it an objective success?
Absolutely.
Already. So that's weird. It is all gravy at this point. I want to see the Commodores in March Madness.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of, as a Vanderbilt fan, I want to be a part of the majesty of March Madness. Yeah. So I will be disappointed as a fan if they do not make the tournament. As an objective person that covers Vanderbilt, you cannot say a negative word about what you've seen out of Mark Byington. So I just have to keep repeating that.
Before we close, I do want to ask you like a personal question. It's sort of just what you hit on. Did you think that what this Vanderbilt basketball team is doing right now is like actually possible? Like if you're being honest with yourself, did you're like, I think they could do it.
Well, we talked about this. If this keeps going in the direction I am seeing it trending, which is they're going to be a 7 to 9 win team in the SEC. Now, if they go and end up being a 10-win team, no way I saw this happen.
Yeah.
But
you saw a possibility for 7.
So my ceiling for this team was a bubble NCAA tournament team that made the tournament. But that was my ceiling. Yeah. That was like, and I've ranted about it on this podcast many times. I think we overuse the term ceiling and floor. I think the true ceiling and floor, for example, of Vanderbilt's football team last year was 2-10 was the floor, and the ceiling was 7-5. And I think we truly overuse floor. Like people will say the floor on this team's 4-8. I'm like, that's not the floor. No. And so when I say ceiling and floor, I truly mean like my wildest expectations. My wildest expectations were this team being an 8 or a 9 seed, and they have the possibility to do it.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm getting at is. They've already blasted through my lowest expectations. My true lowest expectations were they would win about 12 games this season.
Yeah.
They would win 3 to 4 SEC games, and that was my floor. They've blasted through it. So, yes, I don't want to say it like, I saw this coming. It's like, yes, in my wildest dreams I never thought it would be reality. So, if we did a full preview of the season, this would have been my ceiling.
Yeah.
Where they're at right now would have been my ceiling. And there are a lot of tough matchups.
Yeah.
It is absolutely not out of the realm of possibility this team loses out. Is that my prediction? Hell no. I don't think they're going to lose out, but there is nothing crazy that has to happen for this team to lose the remainder of their games.
No, and it's easy, and maybe this is just how I interpret it. I think it's a lot easier to say floor and ceiling whenever you're looking at it on paper, and you're like, okay, this is the ceiling on paper, but you're like, actually, like that coming to fruition in real life seems way crazier than actually like looking at the numbers and being like, I think this could happen. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's a lot easier. Games are not played on paper.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy before the year to be like, they're going to win, 8 to 10 games in non-con, and they're going to win 3 to 4 in the SEC. It's really easy to say. Go ask South Carolina how easy it is to win 3 to 4
LSU,
games.
yeah.
Go ask them how easy it is just to win 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
It's not. So what Mark Byington has done in year 1, we're going to annoy the shit out of people saying it over, is nothing short of incredible. I mean, the quality of product, it's
quite literally miraculous. I was
miraculous. I was in Memorial on Saturday. Is it back to the point of old school Memorial? No, of course not. But it's getting there.
It's getting close.
That was 95% Vanderbilt fans, and that environment was great.
Yeah.
So it's getting there, and I never expected the student body or the fans to rally around this team, how they have specifically the student body. Fans are still lagging behind, but the student body has shown out. So everything that is done so far, Mark Byington, salute to you. Anything else you want to add on 302 before we go to Alex?
No.
All right. So you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
You're about to tune in to the 2025 Vanderbilt baseball season preview. So grab yourself a cold one, and we will be right back with Alex Kurbegov after the TDR cocktail break. Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break, and welcome back into episode 302 of the Door Report. I am Will Byrum, continued to be joined by Trevor Hulan, and we have a very special guest, our very own TDR contributor / writer. I need to update his status on the site. I said I was going to do that for people that were writing consistently. They weren't just going to be contributors.
Yeah.
They're going to be staff writers.
Yeah.
So Alex, I will hopefully do this after the episode, but welcome in. Alex Kurbegov has been doing an incredible job writing not just baseball previews, which is what we're going to be talking about today with Alex, but he's done an incredible job writing women's basketball recaps as well. So, Alex, thank you for taking the time with us here today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, Alex has been in attendance to a lot of the Vanderbilt intra-squad scrimmages.
Yeah.
Alex, how many of those have you been in attendance of, / how many hours have you spent in the Hawk watching this team?
Too many already. I believe they hosted 4 each week, so 8 total. I was at least part of 7 of those, and I was at least 7 innings of 6 of them. So I've seen a lot of baseball.
That is the TDR difference.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, too, that people don't mention, and this is something that me and Alex kind of like bitched and moaned about whenever we were watching the scrimmage together, is they're like, okay, yeah, they're going to do BP and warm-up from 11. Scrimmage starts at 12. That's not the case. They do BP and warm-up till about 1:30, and then 1:30 the scrimmage starts. So you're just like, we should be in the bottom of the 4th right now, but we're still watching them take BP.
Yep. Yeah, no, I finally got wise after about 3 scrimmages, and I was like, I'm just going to get there an hour late, and I did not miss a single pitch of baseball anytime. So got there eventually.
Alex is going to be the go-to man all baseball season. Trevor has mentioned it before on the board and in articles. Trevor was actually initially brought on by Billy because my area of expertise is not baseball. It's not that I don't know the rules. I don't watch. I do watch baseball. I know all the rules. I know the strategy. I just, in my heart of hearts, I've never lied about it. I'm just not as passionate about baseball as I am about football and basketball.
All right, Chad Withrow.
Might as well compare me to Satan. But no. So we need help with baseball. And Trevor, a baseball goon, cannot get enough of it.
Love
and
baseball.
We have found another baseball goon in Alex, and he has written some incredible position by position previews. I want to repeat that. Incredible. Best that you will find on the internet previewing the 2025 VandyBoys baseball team. Trust me, go check them out. Vanderbilt.rivals.com. They are not premium content, but damn well they should be.
Yeah, they should be.
So we're leaving them free this year. That quality of article is not going to be free in the future. That's going to be premium content. But Alex, I don't want to dilly-dally around too much. We're going to go ahead because there's a lot to get to on this baseball preview because we have not talked baseball at all. I'm going to be honest. Have we, Trevor?
No, because football and basketball have been so good. It's Vanderbilt Athletics is on a historic run, to be quite frank, to where it's been this
Actually,
long.
I lied. I want to dilly-dally. Alex, you're also a basketball fan.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How you're a student as well at Vanderbilt. How has the vibe been around the student body with the run that this basketball team is on?
That's a good question.
Oh, it's been electric. I mean, I've never felt like I went to an SEC school more than I have this year. This is the same with football, basketball, everything. I mean, we just had for the first time I'm a senior, so I've been here for 3.5 years now. We just had circulate a sheet with chants to do at the opposing players for Auburn during free throws with like personal insults. So like, what's more SEC than that? And like that, there is real energy in the student body. I was on the court both for the after the Kentucky and Tennessee games. I mean, there's nothing like this. This has been an awesome senior year for me.
Thank God you didn't have another year of shitty basketball at Vanderbilt. You almost made a run through the worst years in the history of Vanderbilt basketball. You were and maybe all sports combined
and football. So Alex, tell the people at home what your first ever Vanderbilt athletic event was.
Yeah, so I lived in Nashville. I went to high school in Brentwood. I know people could get touchy about me saying that that's Nashville, but so I went to high school in Brentwood. So I knew of Vanderbilt was like a casual, like, oh, I'll root for them if they're on TV fan. But the first Vanderbilt event I ever attended as an actual fan and student was the Vanderbilt ETSU football game, which was one of the worst experiences ever. I sat at the very, very top of the bank after having stood outside, being forced to stand outside for an hour, just waiting to come in. And I thought I was never, ever going to be a Vanderbilt fan, yet somehow through whatever degenerate, I don't know, I'm just a sports fan. I became a diehard Doors fan, and it's paying off now, finally.
You have to be cut from a different cloth.
Yeah.
We've said it over and over. Vanderbilt fans are all cut from a little bit of a different cloth. Is that always a good thing?
No,
I don't know.
Definitely a little sadism.
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 There we go.
Sadism.
Mr. Psychology.
I just, dude. Whenever we got to that part in the DSM-5, I was like, I cannot say this word.
PhD candidate Trevor Hulan right here.
PhD hack squad. But
call me Dr. Squat, baby.
The fact that you made it through that, but also a good example of Alex is bringing in local students that are very smart.
Yeah.
That can then turn into local fans that then can contribute to the university as a whole in the city of Nashville versus people that fly in from wherever, no offense, like from Boston, get their degree, are still fans, but then they fly back to Boston.
George?
This is not a shot at Boston George. He's just the first one that came to mind. Even the ones that are fans, the point I'm making is even the ones that are like stay being diehard fans that are not from here, they're going to go back to their home base.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to attend games. So, Alex, I am shocked. I am impressed. I didn't realize that was your first game you attended. Holy hell.
It was.
Well, I'll say
that
this.
That one almost broke me. I walked out of that ETSU game shirtless after I threw my polo onto the field and embarrassed my family. Yes.
Well, I'll say this.
I can't blame you.
Whenever they were looking over his application, do you think they saw his last name and thought he was maybe a Russian immigrant? And that's why they decided to admit him?
That could have helped.
They saw Kurbegov and they go, this boy's from Eastern Europe.
One of my admissions essays was all about, like, I mean, you gotta get the sob story in there. So like I made it all about how my grandparents, like literally, like my granddad literally like climbed the Swiss Alps to escape Yugoslavia and like do all that stuff. So they knew very well. They're like, oh, this guy, he's gonna check some type of a box for us. And I wanted to make sure. I was like, look, I mean, just look at me. I'm not going to check many boxes. And I was like, I gotta make sure. Got to make sure that they know that there's at least part of my story that I can get some like college admission sympathy points or something.
Beautiful. What a backstory on Alex. What an introduction so far. Alex I already can tell, will be brought back.
Yeah.
But Alex, let's actually get into the baseball side of things. We talked football, we talked basketball, so we have talked no baseball. So I'm going to go in the order, basically, just to start out real quick of the articles you released them. So we're going to start out with starting pitching. That's the main calling card of Vanderbilt. Actually, maybe I should rewind a little bit and rehash how Vanderbilt's season ended last year, because I think maybe that's been forgotten in the minds of Vanderbilt fans. So last year, and Trevor, you can correct me anytime I'm incorrect, Vanderbilt went 38-23, had a losing record, I believe, in the SEC, 13-17. Mm-hmm. I don't want to call it a bad year, but by the standards of Vanderbilt overall, when you include how they finished in the postseason, a bad year.
It was a bad year.
Made a run in the SEC tournament, won 3 straight games, eventually losing to Tennessee, and then went into the NCAA tournament thinking they're playing a little bit better baseball. Bats are starting to click a little more. Pitching's looking a little better. And then you go 2-barbecue at the Clemson Regional and lose 2 straight, first to Coastal Carolina, and then finish it out losing 10-9 to High Point. A disappointing end to a disappointing season. Alex, pitching, I would say, not the main problem last year. Was not great, was not as good as it has been, but the bats were the main problem last year. So we're going to start on pitching. That's not going to be as dramatic of people screaming, how is it going to get better? Where is it going to improve? So, Alex, starting pitching, who are some key names? How are you feeling about the starting pitching overall?
So you're going to notice a common theme with a lot of my analyses with really every single position group, aside from the infield, but they are a bunch that has a very high ceiling, but it's relatively unproven, aside from J.D. Thompson. And I'll just start right there. J.D. Thompson is your Friday guy. He's your ace. He had a sub-3 ERA all the way up until that game against Coastal, when he gave up 8 runs in 3 innings, and there were some injury questions there and whatnot. But he was elite last year. You could argue, saved Vanderbilt's season for them. I watched him in scrimmages. He pitched, I believe, over 2 weeks, about I think almost a full 9 innings. He did not give up a single hit in any of those 9 innings. The teams for the scrimmages, I should say, are slightly weird. So some of these stats that I might list off are inflated or deflated based upon who they were going against. They basically had all of the starting position players on one squad and all of the backups on another, which is not usually how they do it. So, but you could kind of tell that their pitchers that they're really trying to get to starting caliber, or that they want to start, were going against the starters. And J.D. Thompson was going against all of the starting bats, and he did not give up a single hit. So he looks great. He's awesome. I have no questions about him. He's your Friday guy. Behind that, though, that's when you start to get into the question marks. The biggest name probably is Ethan McIlvain. He obviously came in with a ton of hype last year. Probably has the best stuff on the team, best at getting strikeouts. But unfortunately, he was injured over the fall, and he obviously ended last season early with an injury. So he has pitched. I mean, he barely pitched at all over the summer and fall. Like, I think, totaled about 12 innings over Team USA and the Cape Cod League. And he looked good in all of those 12 innings, but that's all that he pitched up until, I believe, either December or January of this year. And then when we saw him in scrimmages, he looked really rusty. Like, for some innings, like, he would go 3 innings, allow like 1 hit. You're just like, oh my God, this guy's the best. And then the next inning, he's hit 2 guys, walked 3, and gave up 1 hit that scored another 3.
That sounds familiar to Vanderbilt fans from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I truly think that he's going to be fine. He's going to be good. I'd probably project that by the end of the year, he's your Saturday guy. But there might be some early season struggles as he's kind of knocking off that rust, getting back into the swing of things. Corbin said that he had kept his body in really good shape and he was still there mentally and physically. So that's very good to hear with all of his injury concerns. But wouldn't be surprised if you see some shaky outings from him early on. But I also wouldn't get too discouraged as a Vandy fan if I was that. And then behind him, you have your first transfer that I'm going to mention. It's Cody Bowker. He transferred in from Georgetown. He was their Friday night guy last year. I think he had a 3.0 ERA over the year, maybe slightly above that. I can't quite remember exactly, but he doesn't have as good of stuff. He's not going to blow you away with some 99-mile-an-hour fastball or anything like that, but he is a strike thrower. He's consistent, and he has a funky little right-handed delivery. And sometimes that's just enough. If you can pound the zone with multiple pitches and your delivery is funky enough to trick some batters, then that's going to get you enough. I don't think he's going to come in and put a sub-3 ERA in or anything crazy like that, but I think he's going to be a pretty consistent Sunday guy for us. And some outings he's going to be incredible. Some outings he might get shelled. But I'd say that Devin Futrell last season is a pretty good comparison with good pitchability, not the best velocity. And it's a lefty versus righty, so that's very different. But in terms of results, I think Devin Futrell might be a good comparison, at least last season's version of Futrell.
So that's the weekend starters. Are there any midweek starters or young guys that you're looking at that are potentially going to be impact players?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the majority of them are probably going to come out of the bullpen, but one guy that I think we should really watch out for is Hudson Barton. He is a freshman out of Franklin, Tennessee, actually, so a local guy. There was a little bit of a draft question with him. He kind of came up late because I don't know why this went under the radar. I think there are some injuries with him in high school, but he can throw a 96-mile-an-hour fastball and can throw 4 pitches for strikes. Like, he has true starter stuff. And so there was a few questions of whether he'd be taken late round last year, but we got him through the draft, and he looked really, really solid. He was going up against McIlvain and Bowker in both of the scrimmages, and you can kind of tell what they're looking at if they're going against another like starter type player. And so the fact that he was up against starters in both of those scrimmages tells me that they're really looking at him as either a midweek starter right now or at least a future member of the rotation. So he looked really good. I mean, he's going to have some freshman mistakes. He hit a few batters and he gave up like a few extra base hits, but overall he looked really, really solid in his time. I think he'd be a very good option as a midweek starter.
So kind of go in the exact same direction, probably some similar names like you just mentioned, going to the rest of the pitching staff. So now we're headed to the bullpen, got the weekend starters, kind of started mentioning some of the midweek guys that are also going to be rotational bullpen options. So who are the main arms coming out of the bullpen?
Yeah, the bullpen, it's definitely stronger than last year. I know that last year, every Vanderbilt fan, as soon as the starting pitching came out, was immediately just holding their breath and just praying to God that we could keep a lead. But it's definitely stronger. I mean, the biggest name by far is Miller Green. He was named a preseason All-American relief pitcher by D1 Baseball and the 9th best relief pitcher in the country by D1 Baseball. He posted a 3.1 ERA last year, which led the team and was really, really solid for the entire season. He definitely saved Vandy in a good number of games. He's added a little bit of velo to his fastball, from what I've heard, which is big because he was sitting around 91, and now he's going to be hopefully around 93, is what I've heard mentioned. And he also has that crazy slider that he can also kind of change it to more of a curveball against right-handed hitters. He's going to be solid out of the bullpen. I think he's the main relief guy. In the scrimmages, he had a really rough outing, actually, the last time I saw him, but that was just one inning, and they were doing situational stuff, so I'm not going to get too overwhelmed by that. But the first time he was out there, he went I think he went like 3 innings in like 28 pitches or something. Like he threw like all but one pitch for a strike or something, and he just absolutely tore up the entire squad. So he's definitely the biggest name. Behind him, you have Brennan Cyber, who also pitched a ton for Vanderbilt last year. He's looked solid. I wouldn't say that he's taken a massive step, at least in like a measurable way that I can just see, but he looked really solid. He has that really funky movement on his fastballs and just really all of his pitches. So I think that he's going to be a really big player out of the bullpen. Ryan Ginther, we know about him. He's been here forever, for all 4 years that I've been here, and he regressed a little bit last year, but I think that he's looking to get back to that sophomore form where he even started a few games. I think he started against Arkansas his sophomore year, and I think that he's going to be solid. He's a guy who they're looking at to be a closer. Those were the situations he came in during the scrimmages, and he was solid during that time. I wouldn't say he blew me away, but he was solid enough. Someone who did really blow me away, though, was Sawyer Hawks. Let's just call a spade a spade. He was bad last year, like verifiably bad. He had like a 10.5 ERA, and after being really hyped up as another Air Force transfer out of the bullpen last year, he disappointed, but he also did get injured, and it was pretty clear the whole time that he wasn't necessarily himself. He is back healthy, and he has added another off-speed pitch. Last year it was really just the curveball and then the fastball. Now he's throwing a changeup, and he's throwing it really, really well. I'd say that aside from Thompson, Sawyer Hawks looked like our best pitcher, and I think that he will very likely be our closer. He was pounding the zone with fastballs, off speeds. He was really, really fun to watch, and he was also going against the starters in those closer situations, so that was notable as well.
That's an incredibly useful amount of information about the pitching staff. I mean, a better 5 to 10 minute clip surmising the pitching staff than you will find anywhere else.
No.
So I don't have any questions. Actually, everything pretty much was summed up right there. Now going to the other side, which pitching had its questions. You mentioned the bullpen issues last season, holding your breath. But at the end of the day, the main issue with this team was the bats. And that was the main problem. You saw teams like Tennessee and other rosters just hitting the ball out of the ballpark so consistently. And just making contact with the baseball so consistently and getting batters on base. And Vanderbilt just couldn't do it. And when they did, they couldn't push them home. So defensively, we can discuss that as well, but we'll start with the infield here. Or actually, let's start with the outfield. We'll start with the outfield. So sure. Outfield-wise, you probably have a guy in R.J. Austin moving from second base. You saw him out last year moving to center field. we can start there. RJ Austin is, I don't want to take words out of your mouth, probably the most hyped returning player on the roster.
I mean, you saw RJ Austin at just about every position except for shortstop last year.
Yeah. So
first, second, third, corner, center.
Yeah, we can start with RJ Austin, but let's start discussing the outfield and what they'll bring defensively, but mainly offensively.
Yeah. So we'll start with RJ Austin. I mean, I'd say that maybe JD Thompson might have a little bit more hype overall in terms of like draft prospects. Excuse me, let me get a drink. Sorry, I'm recovering. I had the flu a few weeks ago, and I'm still feeling it. But anyway, yeah, RJ's definitely probably the best position player on the team. He hit 330 last year with 5 home runs and 15 doubles or something like that. I mean, that's an elite leadoff man right there. Something to watch with him is that he has changed his swing and he has changed his stance a bit in order to get more power, actually. And you started to see that both over Team USA and the Cape, where he was striking out a good bit more, but he was also hitting a lot of balls a lot farther. And the big knock on him was not his exit velos being low, but that he was not lifting the ball at all. And that's actually, if we want to get into what Mike Baxter was doing wrong, in my opinion, the biggest thing is that he was clearly not teaching people how to lift the ball, how to get the ball off the ground, because you would see so many times someone hit a ball at 110 miles an hour and it would go straight into the ground to the shortstop and be a double play. And you're hitting the ball super hard. But anyway, so he's changed that now. I think he hit like two home runs and 8 doubles in like 10 games in the Cape, which if you're familiar with like the Cape Cod and everything, usually your power numbers go way down in there because you're using wooden bats and going against the best pitchers in the country. And Austin's went way up. And then I started to see that also a lot in the scrimmages. I think he hit 2 triples and like 3 doubles in 6 or 7 games. And so I think that on a couple of those doubles, if it was a warmer day and the wind wasn't blowing in, they would have been gone. So you're going to start to see a good bit more power with him. And I'm really excited to watch him. He's just an amazing player to watch. Beyond that, though, you got JD Rogers, most likely in left field. I don't want to say that we know what he is because he's only had like 34 SEC at bats. And but he's a veteran. He's an amazing athlete. He's now
you say left field or right field for
left field.
JD
Sorry,
Rogers. Left field. Wait, which one? Left field. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, left. He's an amazing athlete. He's the only player in Vanderbilt's history to have won the Omaha Challenge 4 times now. And so, there's no question about his like raw physicality and power and speed and all of that. It's just, can he hit the baseball consistently enough? He's going to be great defensively. I think he's definitely going to get the start just because he's a veteran. We know how Corbs loves his vets. He's put in the time. He had a really good summer in the Cape League. And if he can produce similar to how he did there, he's going to stick probably in left field, especially with his defensive versatility. But he's a name to watch. If there is a guy who I had to choose with like, that position's really in question, it's going to be left field, especially when a few guys come back from injury, but we'll get to that when we mention the infield. And then in right field, it's going to be Braden Holcomb. He played every single pitch of the scrimmages in right field. He played in first base, as most Vandy fans will remember last year. That was his primary position, but he looked solid in right field defensively. I don't think there's anything to worry about. His range obviously isn't going to be that of Enrique Bradfield or Jacob Humphrey, but he's going to be serviceable, and he is the best power threat. You have to have him in the lineup. You can't not have him. If I had to choose my most improved player, at least position player, because if it was overall, it'd be Sawyer Hawks. But in terms of most improved position player from what I saw in the scrimmages, it would easily be Holcomb. He last year struck out at above 40%, 43% strikeout rate, I think, and he hit about 250 with 5 home runs on the year. And for someone with his power, that's just not enough production overall. He had a really good year in the Cape. He was a Cape All-Star, or summer, I should say. And then he looks like a new player at the plate now. I think Jason King has done a ton of work with him. His swing looks different. It's more It's shorter, much less wasted movement. He stopped doing that stupid thing where he just lets the bat go with his left hand or right hand, and then just like holds it out there with his left. That always drove me insane. And he is driving the baseball. He had one of 2 home runs that we saw over the scrimmages, and I think he took about 5 walks to 4 strikeouts over all of the scrimmages. That's super encouraging. His eye looked a lot better, and he was hitting the ball really well.
Yeah, I'll say too about Holcomb going into this season. And me and Alex talked about this as a scrimmage. His body type, I know he's not the best draft prospect on this team, but if you just looked at, in my opinion, just from strictly like a body aspect and how they're built, he's built like a Major League Baseball slugger. Like he has that design to it.
So this is. Sorry, Trevor, I don't mean to not build on that, but Alex just mentioned Holcomb, which is the absolutely perfect transition into the infield because, I don't follow baseball near as closely as you guys do. I, of course, follow it closer than 99.99999 repeating % of the population. But Alex, I was taking a lot of his previews as gospel. And Alex had written down in his initial preview prior to watching a lot of the scrimmages that Holcomb was going to be primarily playing first base. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that some things are a little bit unexpected that are happening with kind of the lineup construction and defensively, maybe to get some more power and pop in the lineup, some more consistent bats, or maybe it's just defensive reasons.
I think it's injuries too.
And it could be injuries, which is what we're going to get to.
Yeah, it's injuries. And then I'll add to that. I mean, I don't mean to, no disrespect to any of the players. We have a lot of really good defensive options. If you're looking for offense in the Vanderbilt outfield, there is next to none beyond Rogers and Austin. All of the other primary outfielders, you got RJ Hamilton, who he's basically another Jacob Humphrey is what I would call him right now. He has a higher ceiling than Humphrey because he's a redshirt freshman, but he's really fast, not that much power, not much going for him there. His bat's okay, but nothing too special. And then David Mendez, who's basically another one of the exact same kind of guys. So those were the outfielders of old, and those were the outfielders that Vanderbilt was stuck with last year, and we very clearly saw that did not work. So it's actually pretty encouraging to me to see that Corbis is willing to switch up his usual defensive-oriented kind of mindset and instead be like, no, we got to get a guy in there who can just hit bombs. Like that's effectively what right field has become in college baseball, is just a dude who maybe he can run a little bit, but then he just hits nukes. So that's what Braden Holcomb is basically. So that's what I would say is going on there.
More power is what I want to hear. So I'm glad to hear a few adjustments out of Corbin, even though we know he's basically stuck in his ways. And really, who can blame him after the success he has had, including 18 straight NCAA tournament appearances. So, Alex, one final position group to preview. We have the infield, and that encompasses a lot. But we already talked a little bit about some injuries or some different things that have kind of shifted around the lineup. So how do you see the infield? Who are the key guys, and where are some position groups that you have some questions?
Yeah, I'd say so. The infield is like, for the lack of depth that there is in the outfield, the infield is the exact opposite of, you have log jams of a bunch of dudes who could play just about anywhere else. And we'll start with first base. He got like no hype from what I saw coming in, but Riley Nelson, he's going to be the first baseman. I can say that pretty confidently. He is also Vanderbilt's best left-handed bat. He might not be a name that a lot of Vanderbilt fans recognize, but he was the number 4 overall JUCO transfer and number 1 position player transfer from a JUCO, according to a few metrics out there. And he's lived up to that from what I can see. He has a lot of power. He's a lefty, which there aren't many lefty power bats in Vanderbilt's lineup. And he was batting second in all of Vanderbilt's scrimmages for the starting team, which that should tell you what they think about his offense. I think he had like 4 doubles and like 4 multi-hit games against good pitching. He was also the only guy who even touched J.D. Thompson. He hit 2 balls that were like this close to being home runs, but then went slightly foul on the last Saturday, which I saw Thompson. So he's going to be really solid. I think that if you're going to look back at your under the radar guy who really produced, it's going to be Riley Nelson. But he's going to start at first base, in my opinion. Second base is going to be one of Jaden Davis or Chris Maldonado. Davis, I mean, we know what he's going to be. He's a guy who hits the ball a lot, doesn't strike out a lot, and that's valuable in its own right. My only issue with Davis is that he's pretty verifiably not great at everything else other than making contact with the baseball. He's not going to give you a lot of power production. Defensively, he just doesn't have the range or the arm to be anything above below average. I saw a pretty good representation of this on Sunday's scrimmage of like a ball was hit relatively quickly near him and the dude had to lay out and like make a diving grab. I'm like, if there's somebody with a little bit more range and speed there, that's a pretty routine play, but you made it look so hard. And then when trying to flip to Vastine to get the guy out at second, he just totally butchered it. And so I know that Corbs loves his defense, and I'd say that Maldonado is definitely the better defensive option. But I think that we're going to see Davis start there, especially with the injuries. And I'll get to the first one now. Mike Mancini, who was in competition for that second base spot, he is out for we don't know how long. I mean, we all understand how Corbin is with injury information, but I've heard some rumors that it's a hand-related thing. I don't have anything behind that other than a few whispers, but I also heard that it might be a good little while. We know that he got surgery. Corbin described it as, quote, minor. I heard that we would probably expect him back sometime either right before or right after SEC plays start. So I don't know if that would qualify as minor, but I do know that's not season ending. And it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back in. But with Mancini out, I'd say that probably it's going to be Davis. Shortstop, we know who that's going to be, Jonathan Vastine. He had a under the radar good kind of offensive season last year. Like we do know that he's going to strike out way too much for a guy who you think by looking at him would be a contact first kind of guy, but I think he hit 300 with 10 home runs, which if you're talking about arguably the best defensive shortstop, if he can replicate that and hit for anywhere near that, I mean, you're going to take his defense. You know what he's going to have. He looked like the same Jonathan Vastine that we saw, which is a little bit disappointing to me. I was hoping with the new coach he'd cut down on the strikeouts, but he's going to turn on some fastballs. He's going to hit a few bombs that you're just like, whoa, where'd that come from? And then he's going to strike out on some breaking stuff where you're just like, come on, man, really? But then he's going to make the best play you've ever seen at shortstop. So we know what he's going to be. He's going to start there, barring injury. He started every game for the last 2 years at shortstop. So that's pretty set in stone. And then third base, this is where our next injury comes into play. Brody Johnston was 100% going to be the starter there, which is big. We know that Corbin is not one to simply throw out a freshman in a starting infield spot, especially third base, just for the sake of it. Johnston probably he comes into this year with the most hype that I can remember a Vanderbilt position player having, at least in the time that I've been following them. He was the Appalachian League All-Star Game MVP. He had the second most hits in that league. He had the second most runs. I think he had the most RBIs, like fifth most home runs, and that's against 20 to 22-year-old pitchers and a bunch of college guys. So he comes in with a ton of hype. He had a great fall. The spring he had the flu, and so he missed a few scrimmages with that. And now at Wednesday scrimmage this past week, he got beamed in the hand with the fastball. And I've heard that it's a hairline fracture type thing there. I mean, I'm a guy who's had a hairline fracture before. That takes about 3 to 4 weeks before you're feeling like I'm not having aggravating pain in there every day. And then another week after that before you really start to feel good again. So Corbin said that he's questionable for this weekend. We're not going to see him this weekend, I don't think, at least. And it optimistically will be at least another week to 2 weeks before he gets back in. But the good news is it is just a hairline fracture from what I've heard, and it's not going to be too prolonged. But anyway, Johnston has a ton of power. He's going to be a guy to watch. I think he's going to be really, really good for Vanderbilt. Behind him, though, I'd say that probably Maldonado is going to start at third base. That's where he was while Johnston was injured. But if Maldonado if he isn't there, it's going to be Rustin Rigdon, who's the other freshman to watch on this roster. Rigdon is a lefty. He's actually a switch hitter, but they have him primarily going from the left. And he has some good power. He has a really good eye for the zone. He impressed me a lot, especially in that second week of scrimmages. He had several multi-hit games against the starters, and he looked really, really solid. I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of gets pushed into the starting lineup just maybe in a midweek or something to see what he's got. But yeah, Rigdon will probably be behind him. He might be DH actually if while Johnston is out. And then catcher's actually really interesting to me. I thought 100% sure it was going to be Colin Barzy coming into this year. I think that if you give the staff some truth serum, they really want it to be Colin Barzy who comes in and starts this year. But I mean, if we're going to be brutally honest, he had an awful fall. I think I went to 3 games that I saw in the fall. He did not have a single hit and struck out like 80% of his at-bats in the fall. And then the first week of scrimmages, I don't think, again, had a hit in the entire week. And so I was like, oh my God, this guy has regressed somehow from someone who's a 200 hitter last year. And just as I was starting to lose faith in him, and he actually got bumped down to the backups lineup, he responded by, I think he went 8 for 11 with a home run, a triple, and 5 doubles over his last 3 games in scrimmages. So there was nobody hotter than Colin Barzy to end that. So I think with that performance, you're probably going to see him start. And then behind him is Mac Rose, who's the other JUCO transfer. Rose looked solid. He didn't do anything to blow me away, but he also didn't look outclassed at all, which is really all you can really look for in a non-heralded JUCO transfer, I'd say.
That's all the positions. Sorry, we just had some type of car rev by our townhouse here that just had me and Trevor look over at the window.
I will say, I'm very impressed with Alex.
That was.
I'm very, very impressed with Alex.
Yeah, I was expecting. So, Alex, we were talking about this beforehand, and the people can hear this as well that are listening. We've brought on people before. Me and Billy specifically tried out a lot of random people that wrote incredible articles, and you would bring them on, and it would be like pulling teeth trying to get information out. Alex, that was an incredible breakdown.
That was really impressive.
That was great of the roster.
Appreciate it.
So I have no follow-up questions to that. That literally covered everything perfectly. Now I just want to hear more of your opinions on a couple of things. Now that we've gotten like the facts out of the way, what would you say is the biggest strength of this team going into this season?
That's actually a harder question that you might than you might think it is. I'd say this is going to be a annoying, almost sidesteppy answer. The biggest strength to me is that we're doing something different finally. That's the most notable thing. You have a lot more physicality. It's not top end in the SEC. I don't think you're going to be top 3 or 4 in terms of home runs. I don't think you're going to be top 5 in offense even overall. But you have a lot more guys. You have Barzy, you have Nelson, you have Johnston, you have Holcomb. All of those guys are they have the body types of sluggers, and they have true raw power. And I mean, no offense to Davis Diaz and all of those guys in the past, but we did not need another 5'10" guy who's going to hit 290 with 3 home runs on the year. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And then also what goes along with that is the fact that we made changes to the staff with Jason King and Ty Blankmeyer. So the fact that we're doing something different is really, really significant. And then if you force me to choose one particular part of the team that is the strength, I think that the top of the lineup, the top of the order is going to be really, really strong for Vanderbilt. I saw great, if I had to project it right now, that would probably be Austin, Nelson, then either Maldonado or Davis, and then Holcomb. All 4 of those guys looked outstanding in the scrimmages. So I think you're going to get a lot of very, very needed production from those 4. And then J.D. Thompson in and of himself is a strength.
Perfect. So you know where I'm going next. Weakness. If you could point out one on this team, where are you most concerned?
Yeah, again, maybe not the exact answer that you'd expect, but these guys just are not proven. I mean, I'm talking about Braden Holcomb like he's a slugger, and he's going to be the best thing that we've had at Vanderbilt since JJ Bleday. Last year, he hit 250 with 5 home runs, and if he does that again, Vanderbilt's in a really, really tough spot. Again, with all of their pitching. If you look at Ethan McIlvain, you could either see a guy who has first pick of the first round potential, or he is someone who's going to walk a lot of guys, doesn't have the best commander control, and is going to really hurt you in a few innings over the year that could be really, really costly. And that's just a similar story for way too many people on this roster. Same with Colin Barzy, same with Cody Bowker. Brody Johnston's a freshman. He looks great by all means, but he's still a freshman. So you just have way, way, way too many guys who you're like, okay, you could be really good, but I have yet to see it. Like, you have the tools, but I need to see it more. So the variance on this roster is really, really, really high. I would not be surprised if you told me we got to Omaha at the end of the year. I'm jumping the gun maybe a little bit with predictions, but then I also wouldn't be surprised if you told me that we're in the same exact position as last year, where we're fighting to get into the tournament.
Well, you led perfectly into the next question. So you said your ceiling and you said your floor. So I don't know if ceiling and floor is the right term for what you just said, but we'll say that. So do you see the ceiling for this team as genuinely making Omaha, making a run, and do you see the floor as a team that could potentially be right on the bubble, like could miss the tournament and break that streak? That's truly as high and low as it can be. There's a lot of question marks. So that's fully valid.
I wouldn't. I don't think that we're going to be worse than last year necessarily. I think that the coaching is better. I think that our position players we have the right formula to be competing in the SEC. However, again, it just comes to where it's like it's unproven production. So I'd say that the floor is right around that. Like, okay, you're fighting for that 12th, 13th SEC win, because I mean the SEC is just such a gauntlet. You're going to be going against A&M. You're going to go against Arkansas. Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee is as good as they were last year, but like, I mean, they're still Tennessee, on as much as I hate to say that. But I mean, so it's just a gauntlet, and you could really be fighting and struggling through that. But then on the other hand, I think that you could absolutely get into Omaha if Holcomb and Nelson and Johnston I think if 3 of those 4 or 5 guys that I mentioned, of like Nelson, Barzy, Johnston, Holcomb, and I'm forgetting, and then the Mancini. If 3 of those 5 guys really hit this year and they turn out to be the guys that we need them to be, I think that this offense will be really, really strong. I know that might not be actually the most popular opinion in the world. I think people are lower on the offense than I am overall. But given that we know what Davis and Vastine and Austin are going to give us, if you can get 3 or 4 of those 5 guys who have question marks by their name to really hit, then I think we could be a really, really, really solid offense, and it could power our way to Omaha behind some maybe not elite, but solid pitching, especially from Thompson and then the bullpen.
So that's your ceiling and your floor.
Mm-hmm.
Gun to your head, bank account on the line, whatever you want to call it. What would your real prediction be for this season? Where do you see record-wise / where do you see this team ending up in the postseason?
I think that we will probably, if again, gun to my head, I actually think that 14 to 16 ranking, which is what you're seeing from a lot of outlets, is really accurate. I think that we're probably going to end up around 15 to 16 SEC wins, and I think we're going to be one of the last few regional hosts. That would be my best guess. I think that, I mean, it's impossible to make predictions of how things are going to go in the postseason, because it's truly a matter of just who gets hot. I mean, like, Florida was verifiably not great last year. We beat them at Vanderbilt, and they went like sub 500 in their non-conference, and then they got really, really hot and made it all the way to Omaha. And so that's really, really difficult to try and predict. And but if again, gun to my head, I'd say that I do think that we'll make it out of a regional this year. That would be my guess. I'd say we'll probably go out in a super regional. And whether that's a success for Vanderbilt fans, I don't know. I personally think that Corbin's standard, what he said out loud, is that the standard is Omaha. So we should grade it on that. But that would be my guess, is go out in a super regional after hosting.
Well, I was going to do my prediction, but yeah, that was actually my prediction on the season. Is I think they will be better. I think they will host. I think that is my hope, is they will host. They will improve. They've seemed to add not the pieces that we're missing. They seem to be trying to take steps in the right direction. You just can't turn it all around in one off season, even if you are Vanderbilt baseball. And Tim Corbin, I don't think, is the type of coach that's going to try to turn it around, because it's not like you're turning around a fully sinking ship. You're just turning around a team that got knocked out in the regional, and that happens. So yeah, that's my prediction. Trevor, do you have anything crazy different or anything you see?
I'm going to be when it comes to baseball, I'm wet blanket Will. For the most part, I do agree with Alex. I think that this team does have a very high ceiling. Just for this team, I'm leaning towards the lower end. My prediction is that they make it to a regional. I don't think they host. What Alex is saying, what you're saying, I agree. It's got to click, and I am just leaning towards more the I'll believe it when I see it. Now, I'm with Alex. If they click, then this team could put up some insane offensive numbers.
Yeah, the injuries.
I'm not even bugged about the injuries to be quite
Those are
frank.
like 2 of the 5 players I was most excited about watching.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
especially Mancini. I know that. Sorry, I interrupted you, but as a person that's not so fully plugged in, I haven't gone and watched the scrimmages, but just objectively on the outside, Mancini was the most exciting new addition to me on the outside. A guy that put up those. He was the type of guy that put up those insane numbers at the lower level that Tennessee's entire roster was full of.
Yeah.
And I was like, finally, Vanderbilt's picking at least 1 or 2 of those guys that has put up those 400 across the board, 14 home runs. I don't have his stats in front of me, but his numbers were crazy at a lower level of baseball. But it seems like that is transitioning better than people anticipated prior to the transfer portal opening up. And so that one really sticks in my craw a little bit, that he's out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I think going into this season, I'm with Alex, though. I think Braden Holcomb is the one that I'm most interested in. Also, what he said about Riley Nelson, one thing I want to point out is, for a first baseman, that kid can fly on the base paths. He was, in those scrimmages, he was a legitimate threat on the base paths, and you don't normally see that out of a first baseman, have that sort of speed. I'm going to lean, though, they make the postseason. I don't think they host, but I'm with you, Alex. If they can click offensively, then I think this team could host a super. I really do believe that. I'm just I'll believe it when I see it. Especially, I'm really holding everything on Holcomb. If Holcomb can bat 275, 280, but he can hit 12, 13 home runs, this is going to be a really good ball club.
Yeah, I wrote this in one of my previews, but Holcomb, he had that brutal. I think he started 1 of 21 with 10 strikeouts last. He was brutal to watch at the beginning of the year. But then after that LSU series where he finally started to put stuff together, he hit, I think, 310 with 4 home runs and 8 doubles over his last 80 plate appearances. If he can replicate that, maybe up the power numbers, change a few of those doubles into home runs, that is more than enough. And we've seen that he has the capability of doing so. But yeah, no, I agree. And then, Will, I don't want to take too much of your time, but
Buddy,
something that you said, something that you said, I actually thought about that earlier today with, I think that a lot of Vanderbilt fans were expecting a 1-year turnaround of, we're Vanderbilt. Of course, everyone wants to come here. And while the brand definitely does still have value, I think that actually Vanderbilt fans have gotten too down in the dumps about nobody would want to come. The Tennessee brand is outshining Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt still is a brand name. We had a solid transfer class, and we had a solid transfer class while not having any assistant coaches. Jason King was hired, I think, a month after the portal opened, and Ty Blankmeyer was hired 2.5, 3 months after the portal opened. And let me tell you, I've heard amazing things about Blank. He's a top 2 or 3 recruiter in the country. I think that was Corbin's mindset this offseason of, I'm going to get these hires right. And I think that next season, I mean, not to say that they did bad. I mean, Mancini's a great pickup. Bowker's a great pickup. Joseph Jurwa, who, if anyone is unfamiliar, was the Michigan State pitcher. He's a top 3 or 4 pitcher in the portal, committed here before then leaving and going back to Michigan State, and that was not within Vanderbilt's control. So they still did very solid in the portal, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Corbin was kind of looking at this from a more macro view of, okay, let me make sure I have the best people to support me, because we all know that he's not a fan of the modern transfer portal NIL sphere. And now that he has a really, really good supporting cast, it wouldn't surprise me if he's trying to kind of have this be a bridge year into next year where they can really, really start to hit things.
That's a good way to look at it, actually. I haven't thought about it like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I was looking through the Rivals Board questions to see if there was anything you didn't answer in your roster preview already. We already talked about Brody Johnston. I think this person that asked the question didn't realize that he was hurt in the initial question. You already mentioned. So, yeah, this will be a good one since we've already gone over the whole roster. We've kind of answered all the very basic questions, strengths, weaknesses, da-da-da. This person asks, starting 9 predictions. So you've kind of done them separately, but what would be your lineup prediction?
Do you just in order of position play, where they are on the field, or in terms of batting lineup?
Whatever's easiest for you.
I'll be honest, I have no idea what the batting lineup is going to be beyond maybe those first four that I listed off earlier. But I'll say Barzy starting at catcher, Nelson first base, Davis second base, Vastine at shortstop. Maldonado, I think, is going to start at third base while Johnson is injured, and then Johnson's going to come back and replace him. And then who knows what happens after that, I'll be honest. Then left field, Rogers, center field, Austin, right field, Holcomb.
Sweet. That pretty much, so that's the only question that really, and you'd already kind of answered it, but just in one consolidated answer. Everything else that has been asked on the board, you already answered in your roster preview, which was incredible. So, Alex, you've passed the test.
That was very impressive.
That you didn't even know you were taking.
That was very impressive.
We will be bringing Alex on if you enjoyed what you heard, which if you're a baseball fan, you absolutely enjoyed what you heard. We will be bringing Alex on at his, whenever it works with his schedule. We'll be bringing him on throughout baseball season to hear his analysis and what he thinks of the VandyBoys 2025 team.
We should also make the note, Alex is going to be having access to Tim Corbin and players after the game for us as well. So he just continues to be our boots on the ground guy.
Thank you for mentioning this, by the way. So Alex, obviously incredible as much as he wants to be involved, but our first sports season that TDR will have credentials.
Yeah.
So a lot of people on the board have been questioning why we don't have credentials for basketball season.
It's because the season already started. Yeah.
We were in a tough spot.
Yeah.
The season had already started, and people had some questions. We've already covered this before, but like the credentials aren't granted to rivals. No. They're granted to the entity, which is a publisher that is signed up with rivals. So the slot or whatever you want to call it for that press pass or credential had already been taken, which is fine. There's nothing bad, but like they don't just grant those mid-season for game in, game out, because Vanderbilt, well known by a lot, has the shittiest press box in the conference. So is that controversial?
In baseball?
No, I'm talking about in basketball.
Oh,
like it's small from what I've heard. I've never been in it.
I've never
from
been
what
up
I've heard,
there.
it is very small. So Alex will be attending as many as he would like to, or as many as he can. We will have credentials for baseball season, and this incredible analysis that you just heard will be asking questions directly to the staff and players. So Alex, you're going to be providing some incredible, and I want to emphasize this, premium insight for TDR, because a lot of those articles and insights you're going to be having are going to be either posted directly to the board, or if it is involving credentialed interviews, credentialed questions, it will be behind the paywall. So I don't like paywalls, but unfortunately, you Vandy fan fuckers are not paying, and we're not putting anything behind a paywall. So we're going to have to put things behind a paywall because all of you are not paying. So you've done it to yourself, Vanderbilt fans. But Alex, anything else you want to add, or your Twitter handle you want to plug here so people can follow you and keep up with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. My Twitter. So I used to be a burner, and then I became too legitimate, and I had to convert it into my real account. I already was like, wait, I already developed a following. I need to actually transition this. So for my 154 followers who currently follow, I think for Vanderbilt that might be pretty good. But at anchordown0714, that's exactly how you expect it to be spelled. No spaces. That's my Twitter. You can follow me. I'll be in the press box. I'll be asking Tim Corbin and whatever players they have out their questions, and looking forward to getting you all the best coverage, both premium and Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it now, out there.
So we're trying to expand the TDR universe, trying to put some faces to some names that people are seeing consistently posting the board and consistently writing articles. So Alex, you may have set too high of a bar for when we have TDR writers join.
That was, we might be like,
was fantastic.
For homework, we were like, hey, you need to watch Alex's segment
but
before
Alex,
you come on.
Thank you so much for taking the time. That was an incredible preview, and I think everybody, including myself, learned something from that VandyBoys roster preview. So salute to you, Alex, and thank you everyone out there for listening to episode 302 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.